Hi, this is Ashish R. Bedekar, and welcome to my podcast, The ARB Show. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Nikhil, a dynamic professional whose career spans business development, technology, and innovation. With a proven track record of driving growth for software and tech companies, Nikhil has strategic insights and hands on experience in this area. Nikhil is known for his consultative approach and passion for creating value. We are excited to dive in his journey, hear his take on the evolving tech landscape, and pick up some actionable advice for aspiring leaders. Nikhil has a Substack newsletter called Silk Road Nexus. The Silk Road Nexus provides actionable strategies for sales, optimize logistics, and turn supply chain operations into a competitive advantage. Thank you, Nikhil, for being a guest on the show. I look forward to hearing your insights on the top five value drivers in supply chain. Over to you, Nikhil.
Thanks, Ashish. Excited to be here, and I hope that I would be able to answer some of your questions. And yeah, let's dive into it.
Yeah. So, in your view, maybe just a quick, summary of how you got interested in supply chain, and specifically, creating a newsletter because I saw your Substack newsletter and it's pretty exhaustive. Each newsletter has diagrams, has analysis, etc. And one thing about newsletter is you have to be consistent, right, in order to get a viewership or make an impact. So maybe let's just spend a few minutes on your passion for supply chain and your newsletter, and Silk Road, of course, is the famous east to west supply chain linkage. And maybe then let's dive into what you feel as the top five things to know in supply chain. Over to you, Nikhil.
Okay. Yeah, sure, Ashish. So, starting with how I got into supply chain, I think that's a very interesting story. I came to US for my master's. I studied industrial engineering and operations research, which is very closely associated with optimization and supply chain, of course, and the majority of my subjects were in supply chain analysis, etc. But as soon as I finished my master's, my first job was in healthcare, which is completely different from what I had studied. But I think the basic principles, still apply. The good part was that at that time in 2016, product management was not such a huge furore as it is today, where everyone wants to be a product manager. At that point in time, even the definition of a product manager was not clear. So I was lucky enough to be inducted into this product management role early into my career, where I think my passion for solving problems started to begin. And I started looking at problems from a problem mindset rather than a solution mindset, which led to my next job again in healthcare. But this time I was moving more closer to optimization in general, where I worked on some optimization rules for healthcare patient scheduling software. From there, I jumped into supply chain. There was an opportunity over here in Austin, Texas, with Wayfair, which is an online e-commerce decor and home furnishing organization. It's one of the largest in this particular space. They have the largest market share in this arena of large furniture, etc. Over there was this opportunity within the optimization domain where I could come in and utilize my learnings from my masters, other learnings from healthcare, and kind of build products that help organizations scale, reduce costs, build more customer-friendly interfaces, and help that organization grow. So that's where I have been for the last 3 years, and I think that it's a blessing, and I think I'm surrounded by good people and smart people, which make me learn every day.
Right. No, in fact, supply chain came into the news and came into the attention of the general public after COVID, right? When people started seeing, disruptions in deliveries, right? We still remember the famous stocking of toilet papers in, retail, right?
Yes.
So essentially, unless you have got a robust supply chain from manufacturer to the last point, that's a strategic advantage, right? And people who kind of were able to overcome the vagaries or overcome the challenges, past or created by COVID, were able to really move ahead. So with that, let's move into onto the top five points which you would like to share. So in your view, what are the kind of first value driver in supply chain?
Sure. So I think whenever we look at supply chain, I would like to start by stating what are our key customers in supply chain. And I think the value driver itself has to be a value driver for those customers in general. Uh, and when we look at those customers, we see buyer who is buying the product, seller who is selling the product, and a platform that is connecting the buyer and the seller. And in that platform, there is an ecosystem that then works with carriers, that then work with cross-docking or warehousing organizations, that then work with freight owners such as ocean freight, rail freight, etc., where the goods move all together. So when we look at the overall ecosystem and look at the value drivers, I think I would like to touch on different aspects of what value means for different players in this game. And when I start with the buyer, who is creating the value for everyone, if someone is buying the products, that's why we are manufacturing the products and that's why we're shipping the product. So when we look at the customer who is buying the product, for them, the fundamental of buying online, which is different from buying in a physical store, is simply the fact that they're getting convenience of shopping at home or shopping at a location that is desirable for them in the comfort of their houses, etc. And at the same time, ensuring that they have a quality product. Quality can be very abstract. It can mean something for you and something else for me. But how I define quality is something like, is the product available online? First, it has to be made available. Second, there is a huge selection and catalog of products. How do I find the product that fits my need? So it has to be available. It has to be findable. Then there has to be a very smooth checkout process, which limits the churn from the customer side. I look at the product, I select it, I put it in my cart, I pay, and I move out. So at the end of the day, the pre-order funnel value basically comes from ensuring a smoothness of how a customer is able to find and buy that product. In that process, you build a lot of trust with that customer. Those are 4 pages, but the trust starts from the very first page. The trust starts from how is the product looking on the website? Is the product coming in the timeline that I desire it to come in? Is the price competitive from its competitors? How are the reviews looking like? Reviews generate a lot of trust. And then when you finally move into the checkout page, how quickly can you make the customer pay for that product once it's in the cart? And the only reason you can make the customer pay is if you can build that trust. So in a nutshell, the value that I'm driving from all of this point is personalization. How can you personalize the experience for the buyer that builds trust with the customer, not only to buy the product right now, but to come back again and buy? So I think that's one of the things. Yes.
So very interesting, because there are parallels between what you said and a typical mom and pop shop, right? So for example, typical mom and pop shop, the owner would practically know his clientele, right? He knows what everyone likes, doesn't like. He knows the seasonality, right? And using his acute business acumen, he kind of stocks those products when they are, right? So yes. That's one example. But the same kind of stuff, right? When it is there online, that's where things do that. And also from a overall point to point, one of the bigger challenges which all e-commerce players face is the cart abandonment, right? Wherein if it could be multitude of reasons, the connectivity is bad, or I tried payment but it did not go through, couple of these, right? So all those again link to the overall experience and more personalized way. So that's pretty interesting. Another point which I just wanted to get your views on is when you talk of personalization, there are a lot of talks of, say, omni-channel, right? And we see a lot of areas wherein retail physical stores also have a e-commerce equivalent. So in that, when you talk of personalization, what are the kind of things which typically happen in which the buying persona or the personalization expectation in a physical environment may be different from a real one? So is that another factor which kind of plays into this whole play of personalization?
It definitely does. And I think coming back to your original point around the mom and pop stores, right? I mean, what you pointed out is very, very valid. People in those local stores know the local community, and they're able to address those people by name They trust them. Even like when you look at the mom and pop stores in India specifically, they run on the perspective of trust, that I buy the product now, but I may be able to pay the shopkeeper maybe, let's say, 2 days from now or 3 days from now. So that's the trust between the shopkeeper and the buyer. But coming back to your question around personalization between how to manage that omni-channel approach for a physical and the online store. So I think in today's world, specifically when we look at the capitalist society, let's say United States, for example, there is a Nike store and there is a Nike online shop, e-commerce shop. I think there are two aspects to it. One is there is a halo effect in play. A brand perception actually builds really well when you have a physical store available and you can show the products to the customer in a physical sense, that they can feel, touch, and sense what that product looks like. That is very, very valid when the customer moves from that physical shopping to the online shopping, because you have already seen certain products. You have a feel and play how that product actually looks in your hand. For example, a Nike shoe. So first time you may go and buy it from a physical store, but Nike's online channel strategy is attract people in, create that halo effect, which is create that brand perception through the physical store. But then the second time the customer, if they really like the product, they trust Nike as a brand, they can go online and shop. So physical stores actually play a very good role, a very good halo effect. Now, of course, Amazon has been able to beat that. They don't have physical stores, but they're still selling most merchandise in the world than anyone else combined together. So there is obviously like a exception over here, which is very, very large and very scalable business built without that halo effect of omni-channel experience. But I mean, when you look at personalization from Amazon side, it's a very different example, right? For example, Amazon now allows you to buy product at swipe from the browse page itself. Now, why would a customer want to do that? You're just seeing the product. You're not even on the details page, but you're swiping and buying. That's trust. Amazon has been able to do that over the last 2 decades and build that trust with the customer. So I think both strategies are working. Different kinds of players are using different strategies. But I think it's very brand perspective as to how you want to build your brand. Can it be online play purely, or should it be an omni-channel strategy with physical and e-commerce strategy combined together?
Fantastic. Very nice. So let's move to the second point. So what else would you like to share about supply chain? What are the second value driver in your perspective?
Sure. So I think we talked about the customer and personalization aspect of it. Then the second driver, I think when we move down that value chain of supply chain and logistics itself, is the inventory placement. And I think that's a very big value driver for a retailer / supplier, or the platform that is connecting a supplier and the customer. Inventory placement becomes really crucial from the perspective of how you will deliver that product to the customer. Meaning, a customer, when they go online to buy that product, they are looking at a few aspects before they make the decision. And delivery dates are really one of those key decision points where a customer decides, should I buy this product from this website, which is delivering the product in 2 days, or a different website that delivers it in 1 day. That delivery aspect becomes really, really crucial. Second thing about the inventory placement is, the more closer the inventory is to the customer, obviously it will be more faster to deliver it to the customer, but at the same time, it will be cheaper to deliver it to the customer, because delivering 500 miles and delivering 50 miles, the cost difference is huge. So it becomes a real good value driver. And hence I come to this point of, how do you optimize the inventory placement of products? How do you select what warehouse get how much inventory and from what supplier, and how do you distribute that inventory shelf space between different suppliers? So for example, if you go in physical store like Walmart, you have a bread aisle and you have 1,000 different categories of bread, for example, let's say. But you have divided that 1,000 shelf of bread into 100 different suppliers, with some suppliers getting 50 bread shelf space, the others getting only 2 bread shelf space, etc. So how do you do that? That's basically placement. You know what supplier sells how much, what kind of customers like what kind of supplier and what products. So this becomes really crucial in driving value and sales, at the same time optimizing your costs. So inventory placement is a very big value driver. And I think in the future, over the next 5-6 years, we will see a lot of investment, specifically on the AI side, getting into inventory, selecting suppliers, and what warehouses to use.
Got it. In fact, in India, this has gone to an other extreme, right? Wherein you have a 10-minute hyper local, hyper fast deliveries, and
Oh,
it's
really?
kind of
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it's quite kind of a boon for lazy people, right? Instead of going out to buy, just in 10 minutes you have the stuff, right? Because I guess they have kind of found out some patterns and have kind of warehouses close to the folks. So interesting times. Another
Yes.
another aspect when you talk of dynamic inventory, etc., is again I think there's a lot of analysis on data trends, AI, etc., and try to forecast what would be the demand, right? Because for example, let's say the onset of summer is delayed, right, in a specific country, which means likelihood that the market for or demand for, let's say, ice creams, right, or cold drinks or things like that is likely to be subdued, right? But if you were expecting a very hot summer for a long duration, of course your consumption is kind of going to go up. So all these things, it's really interesting and fascinating to see all these data points getting analyzed and some action is taken. In your view, what's the third important value driver in supply chain?
For the third driver, I would actually go back to the customer, but customer merged with platform reliability and carrier reliability over there. So I will touch on three different segments of stakeholders of supply chain in this. But reliability of delivery, making sure that what you promise to the customer at the time they're buying the product, you're able to actually fulfill those products in that time frame. Only 70 to 75%, and I'm saying this on the higher side, of the product actually get delivered on the promised time that you actually promised to the customer. And that too varies a lot across different sales categories. So for example, large furnishing items are more often delayed, let's say around 70% of the time delayed or early, rather than being on time to the delivery promise that you made to the customer. So I think value drive from reliability is very huge. It's the repeat business rate that's associated with it. And if you are able to build that trust post order with that customer. So I talked about the pre-order trust on the pre-funnel pages on browse, PDP, cart, and checkout. But when you move it to the post-order side, now the customer has already paid you, trusting that you will meet your promise. How do you actually meet your promise is a very big value driver. And over here, your carrier selection becomes really important. What carriers you want to use? Maybe I want to use highly reliable carriers for faster delivery. One-day delivery, I will always rely on FedEx, let's say, for example. But if it's a 5-day promise, I may choose a cheaper carrier, which has a lower reliability rate, but I'm still very positive, probabilistically looking that they will still meet their target in 80% of the cases. So that becomes really crucial, reliability, because it depends on what suppliers you want to select at the end of the day, because suppliers have lead time. They start making orders in some cases when the order is received. How frequently they will miss their lead time or how often they will meet their lead times will feed into carrier selection. Carrier selection would depend on cost and the reliability index. And at the end of the day, for example, Ashish, I asked you this question, right? I mean, if you get a product that is delayed, are you going to blame FedEx or are you going to blame the brand that you bought it from?
The brand which I bought it, right?
So at the end of the day, so it has started to make more sense to start shifting this mindset from treating logistics as a cost and start treating it as a value driver. Right. For the organizations. Yes.
Right. And also we are in the age of social media where even a day's delay, immediately people will take to social media with hashtags and all, right? Yeah. So you can ensure that there is action on that. Great. So in your view, let's move to the fourth value driver. What would you think are the fourth value driver in supply chain?
So moving down to the chain now, right? I mean, we have talked about the customer. We have touched a little bit about different stakeholders that are there in the supply chain. The next value driver is actually an amalgamation of all these stakeholders, and it touches with every single stakeholder, and it's a very important value driver. And it's going to be even more important as the volume of logistics and the e-commerce start to rise. E-commerce is already at a $4 trillion industry, and it's supposed to be like $8 trillion industry by 2030. So we are almost doubling down on the goods that will be moving across our supply chain. When we increase the volume across the supply chain, the biggest challenge that is going to pop up is going to be the challenge of visibility. Where is the order in the supply chain? You have a supplier sitting in China or India or Vietnam, and you have a customer here in US, and there are 1,000 touch points before the product actually lands in United States Customs, and then there are 100 more touch points after it lands into the custom and actually gets delivered to the customer. Across those 1,000 touch points, do you actually know where your product is? The biggest mishaps or problems that happen in the supply chain are the visibility issues. I know my product is moving, but I don't know where it is in the supply chain. Has it reached the customs, or is it still in China at the dockyard? That is going to be the biggest investment opportunities. And I think a lot of startups are actually starting to see a lot of value, which started providing this visibility software, which is nothing but tracking your events and making sure that appropriate events get surfaced. And if certain things are missing, they highlight or pop up a red flag saying, hey, it was supposed to be in this warehouse 3 days ago. We haven't seen this product arrive. In today's world, it's highly manual. You can't red flag products until it's actually delayed to the customer and customer reaches out, hey, you promised you will deliver in 5 days. It's already day 10. Where is my product? And then operations starts looking into it. Oh, let's find where this product is. So investment into visibility is going to be a very key driver in the future. And I think that's where a lot of companies and a lot of investment is actually happening. Venture-based startups are coming in.
Right. Could you also touch on the role of connectivity, specifically, let's say IoT and global connectivity for such a kind of thing? Because, one can imagine that, let's say you've got a container and you've got some tracker, or even within the warehouse, you've got, tracking technologies, IoT, etc. So their connectivity would play a very important role, because connectivity is giving you real-time insights, and more reliable, more robust connectivity would mean better visibility across the value chain. Maybe you can just spend a minute on that.
Yes, sure. I think connectivity, as you said, it is very crucial. I think, without connectivity, this entire visibility game would falter and kind of fall apart. The biggest, I think, the improvements that we have already started to see in the space of connectivity is, use of technologies like RFID. You put an RFID tag on a pallet and you track that pallet. So instead of someone actually scanning the barcode and giving you the event, you're now tracking the package in a real time, how it's moving. But RFID becomes really costly when you're looking at a scale of operation. You can probably do it at a pallet, which is great. But once the pallet is depalletized and the items are broken into individual parcels or packages, putting RFID is very costly and also ineffective. So at that point in time, you depend on connectivity a lot in warehouse, how your connectivity ecosystem is built, because now you have also bringing in droids, robots, and you're building that cobot culture within the warehouses. So how humans interact with robots, connectivity plays an important role over there. But again, I think this use of technology and physical AI will become very, very prominent in the role of visibility. And I think Amazon is making a lot of investment in this particular space. Their warehouses are completely robotic at this point in time, a lot of their warehouses. So warehousing will change. Enter of robotics, connectivity will obviously play a huge role in this space.
And in fact, I've come across many connectivity startups who are kind of trying to solve or give a global solution, a global platform wherein you just plug and play based on API. So then, it solves major hassles. So that's great. We've been having a very fascinating discussion so far. So the last point, what do you feel is the top 5, the fifth point, the fifth value driver for supply chain?
So I think when we looked at these 4 value drivers, starting from the customer, touching on personalization, moving into visibility, reliability, and inventory opportunities to kind of improve, I think the fifth one is basically merging all of these and building a resilient supply chain. When most of the things fail in supply chain is because I think a lot of the leaders in this space have looked at supply chain as these individual buckets. I can improve my inventory localized. I can improve my reliability localized. I think I disagree with this notion. In supply chain, you can look at things individually, but looking at things individually breaks 50 other things downstream or upstream of you. So how do you build that resilient supply chain? And I think there is a lot of focus specifically with AI and automation as to how do you build that resilience in supply chain, meaning you make it shock proof, which is in tariffs world today, We have seen that containers and the order volume is getting cancelled at an unprecedented rate. The container volumes are 50% down. The air freight volume is 70% down. I read a report today from Wall Street where these are actually now starting to impact the economy in a different way. Uh, People are buying less, of course, because products are getting expensive. Suppliers are shipping less, of course, because now tariffs are making them expensive. So they're looking at local sourcing. But what they're doing is making supply chains completely unresilient. They're driven by shocks. They're driven by news. So how do you make your supply chain move away from news factor
Got it.
and be more driven towards resilient, shock-proof innovation and
Right.
utilize more of data and customer-driven insights rather than
Right.
news-driven insights?
Right. And in fact, this reminds me of this concept of theory of constraints, right? Which talks of have aim for a global optima and not a local optima, right? So that's
Absolutely.
essentially on the same lines. So great.
Exactly.
Thanks, Nikhil. This gives a great perspective, and thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. Do subscribe, share, and like this podcast. Consider giving it a 5-star rating if you like the content. Bye for now. Talk to you soon.